Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Moms at Work. My name is Sumayya.
And my name is Rawa, and today we'll be talking about sharing chores with our partner. So that's a hard one. I think for me personally, obviously before I started working, it was kind of not expected, but it was kind of the natural thing to do for you to do everything. You know, your husband's at work all day, he comes back tired. It's only natural that you're going to do everything. And it was nice, to be honest. I enjoyed it. I had a nice routine that by the time my husband comes home from work, kids were fed, kids were changed, dinner was ready for him, and you know he had to just do the bedtime routine, I guess. But I think once I started working, it was important for us to both realise that we're both now in the same position, and I can't do it all. As much as I'd love to, I really can't do it all. And your partner has to help. You know, there has to be. Things have to be now equal. Things have to be shared. I think if you have a partner that recognises that and appreciates that, it makes your life a whole lot easier. But I appreciate that for men, at the end of the day, or at least I'll speak on my part, for my husband, the responsibility on his shoulders is still greater to make sure that he provides for his family, which is why sometimes I think it's okay, I still have to do more than him, and that's absolutely fine. But there will be weeks where I think it's important for us to communicate. If I've got a full-on back-to-back meetings kind of week, I need to reach out to him. You know, communication is key with your partner, everyone knows that. And I need to reach out to him and say, listen, this week I need your help a bit more. This week, can you concentrate on the cooking? This week, can you concentrate on something, because I can't do it all this week, and that's absolutely fine. So for example, yesterday I did say to my husband, listen, things are a bit hectic at home at the moment, so if I concentrate on washing the clothes this week, can you concentrate on making sure the dishes are washed? Just put them in the dishwasher every day, you know? And actually it was nice because we both stuck to what we needed to do, you know, and then everything else around that kind of falls into place. You know, we'll see things and we'll do it as and when we're doing our tasks that we've assigned each other for that week. You know, so it does. It's important to share, and it's important to communicate that you need that help, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you there when you say you have to talk to your partner. I've been working since the very start of our marriage, so I've always been in the working life, and I mean, I've done less hours initially when we first got married. I did less hours compared to my husband. And so I think traditionally, and when you newly get married, you know, your mom tells you, oh, you must do this, and this is how you look after your home, and rightly so, you know, she's prepping you up. And
to be honest, you get excited wanting to be that perfect housewife, isn't
exactly,
it?
settling into a new house and all the rest of it, you know. But you know, as you get older and you get children, and you know, and the only time I stopped working was when I was on maternity leave. And now, presently, while I'm doing two jobs, it is, you definitely have to split the chores, you know, and my husband knows what chores he's doing and what chores I'm doing, and we just have to like get it together and get the house, you know, in a decent condition. Yeah. I can't always say that it's a perfect condition, but it has to be, you know, certain things just have to get done, you know, and my husband knows now, if I've said to him, look, I've got loads of orders to complete, and this is the only day that I have to do it, and so I'm not really going to be able to do much of the housework. So he will never say to me, oh, I can't do it, or he'll never come and ask me, oh, do I need to do this or do I need to do that? He'll just get on with it. He knows what they need to do, like the vacuuming or whatever. He'll just do it, you know, and I think that way we've kind of, it isn't not verbally spoken to each other, but you know, like
the signs are there. He knows you need the help.
You're on the same sort of wavelength that you know. If I can't do what she's doing. Like I can't do the orders and the baking, but the other stuff has to get done, and I know I can do that. So he's like, he'll go and do it all, and there are parts of the day where I'll obviously do bits and pieces whenever I find a pocket of time. But I think you have to bounce off each other. You have to appreciate that he's working and I'm working, and you just have to get it done. I think it's important that in this day and age when everyone's in the working, you know, you have to be able to work off each other and bounce off each other and get the work done. Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. I think my husband, when he has chores to do, he will involve the kids a lot.
So
I think
that's a very good way
less for him to do. But I don't mind, to be honest, because they need to start learning and they need to help mom and dad with the chores anyway. Especially as they get older, that's really important. But yeah, no, 100%. I think, like you said, I think with time, men or partners do get to see the signs. So my husband's biggest sign is he always says to me, I know when you're stressed because the house is a disaster. And I'm like, yeah, that's the biggest sign. So I do see him without me having to ask or say anything, he will pick up. And he's generally, to be honest, he's very hands-on with house, with the kids, with everything like that. But I think a working or a mum at work will suffer, or will suffer in silence a lot of the time if she doesn't have a partner that appreciates what she does, that can see the signs, that's there to help, that will, you know, tell her, just even if some men, they just need to be prompted, don't they? They just say, just ask me and I'll do it. It's absolutely fine. Because we tend to kind of say they can see things in front of them. Why don't they think to do this? But no, it's a fair comment, because they've obviously got a lot of things on their mind. They're busy with their work. So sometimes they don't see what we see, you know? So it is important to tell them, I need help with this today. And I think it's important to keep on top of the things that can quickly spiral out of control. So for me, it's always the dishes. It's always the clothes. And it's always the food. So food's really important, to make sure that we've got the shopping and we've got things planned for what to cook, because otherwise you can get into this habit of relying on takeaway, relying on the freezer food, and that's not great. So those for me are the top three things that I say to my husband. If we keep on top of these three things, we'll be fine with everything else.
Everything else.
But do you have something like that? Do you have like your top three things that you need to make sure you're on top of with your husband?
So like you said, like the dishes. My husband is like, I call him like the human dishwasher, because after a day of baking, there's like a mountain of dishes to do. So I mean, obviously, I try and like bash out as much as I can in the middle of
you know, two dishwashers,
or waiting for like bakes to complete and things. But by the time I've baked for about 5 hours, I physically can't do any more, and I know I feel really bad that when he comes home at the end of the day, there's like a pile of dishes. But I think he's like, he just silently he gets through. He doesn't moan about it, and I think that if it was me, on the other hand, coming home from work, I think I'd moan that there's a whole pile of dishes to do. But I think he knows that it's not like I've just been sitting around doing nothing all day and then there's a pile of dishes to do. He knows I've been working and that's why there's all this to do. And I just think that you kind of fall into a routine. Like, for example, he'll say to me, I put the clothes into the washing machine, but when you wake up, just switch it on so that, you know, it by the time you finish your breakfast and stuff, it's done. So that's one thing that he's done that I don't have, like, it's in there and all I have to do is press the button. And like you said, like, your husband gets your children involved as well. And I think that's really, really important, to get our children to see that, yes, mom and dad are doing the house chores and cleaning the house and everything, but the way I speak to my children, I say that this is everyone's house. This is your house and it's mom and dad's house. So we all have to keep our house clean. It's our responsibility to keep our house clean. And Islam, we know it's very important to keep everything clean and tidy, you know. You know, and not just the places where we pray or eat. Everything has to be nice and clean as much as we can do. You know, and this is why I've taught my children to now, you know, like pick up the clothes from the rack and put them away, or like emptying the dishwasher, like I said earlier, and you know, like changing the bed covers. I think these are tasks that, yes, we need to teach them step by step, but once they get the hang of it, just like we talked about the cooking the other day, you know, and I think it's really important for them to get involved and say that, yes, this is our house. We need to take pride in looking after it as well. So that definitely helps to split the chores. You know, now we can split the chores 4 ways. You know,
exactly. And one thing I find that really helps is having or investing in kind of hacks that really help you with your chores. So one thing, for example, my husband bought actually was the Robo Hoover. You know, nice. It's honestly, it's amazing because, you know, we put it on every night when we sleep, wake up in the morning. It's not 100% perfect how you would manually clean, but it does the job. You come in, you do see that the floor is much cleaner than how you left it.
Really?
Yeah, wow. 100%. So yes, like, I'm a really big believer in investing in things that will really help you with these, you know, life hacks and just making your life a bit more easier, especially with the chores. It's really important.
I really like that idea. I never thought about a robot hoover. I think my kids would love it.
I'm sure there's a lot more things out there, but we just don't know about them. But yeah, no, definitely.
That's a good idea. I might have to look into that.
So Sumayya, for me as well, it's not just about the house chores or the cooking and stuff like that. For me, it's also about the kids, sharing the upbringing of the kids, sharing the responsibility of the kids, dropping them to school, picking them up from school, homework with the kids, taking them to their clubs, taking them to their tuition, or whatever else is involved in all of their daily lives.
Yeah.
That's really important to share with my partner, because again, you can't do it all. There's only so much you can do. And I've always said to my husband, look, if I need to dedicate 100% of my time for the kids and for the house, I need to quit my job. I can't do it all. And, you know, he appreciates that. So he you know, like I said, it's just communication. We communicate. So if he knows he's got an important meeting where he's got directors on the meeting, he can't, you know, leave that. He can't cancel the meeting like that. Then I'll know to pick up and step in, and I'll go pick up the kids. I'll drop them, and I'll pick up on that day. But so, you know, we don't share our calendars. I know some couples, they share their calendars, so it's a lot easier to see their time. But we talk a lot, so that's how we know. Sometimes we'll converse a day before, check our calendar and say, listen, at this time I can't cancel this meeting. Are you able to deal with the kids? So it's even sharing, like, you know, the kids' lives and their everyday routines and just even upbringing, to be honest with you, sharing that with your partner, because it's a lot harder for me to teach them everything about religion and everything about life and everything about you know, memorizing what they need to memorize, stuff like that. That has to also be shared. As for a working mum, it's really hard. That all falls on top of you as well. So for example, I'll say to him, you know, in these car journeys, wherever we're going, that's your time with them to teach them the Quran. Let's memorize a few surahs from the Quran. That's the only time we've got.
That's the only time.
You know, so that's really important.
I think I feel the same way, because you know, I mean, I work in the same school as my children attend, so the school drop and pick is not the thing in that house. I think for us it's more like the after school activity. So a lot of the things have now gone online, but you still have to be present for your children, make sure that they log in at the right time. If there's any IT issues, you know, there's all of that we never had IT issues before lockdown and all of that. And I just think that now, like my son attends a couple of physical classes, but my daughter, a lot of like her Quran class and everything is online now. And I think so we come back from school, and shortly afterwards she has her Quran class. So sometimes I'm not able to stop my baking and sit with her. So I've actually trained Abbas, my older one, to sit with her and just to help her in case she needs anything. You know, she's still small, like, you know, she might lose her place or something. So I think it's important to teach your husband, or like not teach, but, you know, to make sure your husbands are on track with it as well as your children.
Definitely.
So now, like, Abbas goes to some like karate classes and stuff. So at the time my husband is not home, so I will drop him and then he'll pick him up at the end of the day, so I don't have to keep coming in and out of the house again. And I think, like you said, you know, like finding time to spend with them and teaching them things as well. So like now my husband has taken the responsibility of sitting with my children and doing reading the Quran with them, practicing the bit they need to learn before their next class comes on, or, you know, if they are learning something, like I said, memorizing, when it comes to, you know, learning like a for shahadat or wiladat, then they have to learn a certain passage or something, you know, sitting with them and learning and teaching them, or praising them or encouraging them. It's in that's another effort as well, that you know, sometimes you just don't have the time to sit with them and listen to their whole thing and then encourage them and prepare with them for. I think husbands are definitely important they have to spend that time. And it's a bonding time as well for them, you know, that they feel proud that their child is learning all this and they are part of the learning process. So I think
giving that time is really important.
I think so.
Definitely. And actually on that subject, we're going to Isra now to talk about time management. See you soon.
The way that modern society is at the moment, we are increasingly seeing people, especially women I would say, having to juggle through so many different hats at any one time. And obviously that's no easy task, obviously the increasing number of responsibilities that we're having to take. But I genuinely believe that having an effective time management strategy in place really helps you to get more done in a really effective and healthy way. And especially I think with mums who work, we do find that we have responsibility with the kids, the house, our jobs, side hustle maybe, family, friends, society, community work. So I think just thinking about that and considering obviously that we need time for sleep, time to eat, hopefully time to exercise, it leaves us with only a very limited number of hours to get all of this done. So, and sometimes that puts so much pressure on people to actually get everything done. But let's face it, it's not about getting everything done, rather than it's about really working on prioritizing what needs to be done at any particular time. And that's really important, again, mindset shift that I want people to take, that at different stages of your life, you do have different priorities naturally. And different priorities means how much time you spend on a particular task will differ from one period of your life to another. So for example, when we have very young children or a newborn, naturally that child is very dependent on us. So we will spend more time with that child. It will take more hours of our day with our children. But as they grow up and become more independent, at least physically, then we can spend more time maybe on other things as well. So the different stages of your life means that you can spend more time in different areas. And what's important here is that you make that as a choice, that you realize it's a choice that you've made, rather than saying words like, oh, I didn't get to do that, or I didn't have time to do that. It's saying I chose to spend more time here and I chose to spend less time there. And that's a more empowering mindset to have. And it really reduces the chances of feeling guilty or shame about leaving something out or reducing. But obviously, always keeping in mind that things that are really high on your priority list are not sort of neglected at any time. For example, your sleep time or family time are not neglected within your schedule. And something that I found really, really useful in my own life is to have a really basic strategy for time management, to be honest. So what I would say is to basically list everything that you need to do the next day, the night before. And when you've listed them, then start to rank them as the most important or least important. So you can either rank them 1 to 10, or you can rank them as most important to least important. And then what you want to do is really start off with the most important task. And what you're doing is that imagining your time as in a bucket, and you're filling it with the big stuff first. And then what you end up finding is that once you start to fill it up with the most important, bigger tasks first, you actually find the time and the space to fill it up with the smaller things. So you actually get so much more done. And that really helps not only with time management, but actually reduces the chances of procrastination, which is really common for a lot of us as well. So really starting off with the most important tasks, or even still the tasks that you probably are putting off, things that you don't enjoy most, or the most difficult or stressful task, but is really essential or important in your progress or in your life. Start off with that at the beginning of your day, and you'll find that once you start to tick things off, it just motivates you and it drives you to even do more. So this is kind of really basic technique that I think is really, really powerful, really works well. But once you look at your list, I think then you're just realizing that those lower down, especially things that you don't enjoy, things that are not reliant on you specifically, is to work on outsourcing when and where you can. So for example, if you find that you've got less time but more money, maybe investing in getting someone to help you out with the cleaning of the house. So that kind of just looking at your own schedule, looking at your own circumstances, is knowing where you can outsource certain things, and that really leaves you more time to do the things that are higher in value for you and things that you enjoy more as well. Another thing which is really actually important is to, when you are doing a day-to-day task, is just begin to really declutter things around you physically. Decluttering things physically saves you so much more time, but actually frees up a lot of mental space as well. So decluttering space declutters mind as well. Finally, I think just for you to be able to multitask sometimes. I'm not a big fan of multitasking all the time, but something that I find really useful is when I want to learn something or read something, I'd open maybe an audiobook while I'm cooking. So multitasking, or when you're driving, commuting to work, maybe opening up something that really helps you to do sometimes two things at once. But obviously leaving more time to become present and focus on one step as well is really essential.
Okay, so Sumayya, how do you deal with your time management?
So the way that we deal with it in the house is that me and my husband, we share things out, and we have our set chores, and we just try and manage everything as much as we can within a reasonable period. And we know that we may not be able to complete all the tasks and may not all be able to live up to our expectations. How do you feel about, not always having to fill your, live up to the expectations? How does it work in your house?
I think for me personally, it's been really difficult. I've had to kind of brain train myself to just let a lot of things go and not let things affect me. for example, we set ourselves expectations, you know, and if we don't do what we said we're going to do that day, we end up panicking, we end up struggling, we end up being stressed because we just think, oh my God, that's just going to add on to our to-do list for tomorrow. And it's going to become overwhelming. But I think it's important to lower your expectations even of yourself. You know, it's okay to not finish the to-do list for that day that you've set yourself. It's absolutely fine. And prioritize your to-do list. So make sure you've got your 1, 2, 3, which are must-haves for that day. But then the rest of it, if they don't happen that day, it's fine. They'll go on to the next day, or they'll go on to the weekend. It's absolutely fine. So definitely it's hard because I've had to brain train myself, honestly, to just lower my expectations of my chores and of even what I expect my partner to do. So if I've told him, please, I need you to do X, Y, Z today, and he doesn't do it, it's fine, let it go. It can happen the next day or the day after.
Okay.
I think just lower your expectations generally in everything in life so that you can be pleasantly surprised with what you have achieved and what you've accomplished as well, because otherwise you're never going to be happy. You know, you're always going to set yourself unrealistic targets and you're never going to be happy. And that's just a general life rule, to be honest. I've always learned lower expectations of yourself, of your partner, of your kids, of your house, of your friends and family. Don't always have expectations, and you'll find that actually by not having those expectations, you'll live a much more peaceful life, and things won't stress you out as much as before. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think when you talked about your husband, and I think even with children, we have so much expectations that they have to do their reading and their Quran and their homework and to attend every online session or physical session that is possible. I think sometimes you build our expectations so much, and then like you said, we feel deflated if we can't manage to do it. But I've had to train myself, just like you said, I've had to train myself, and yes, I have a list of things to do, and I may not be able to complete all my tasks, because if I'm working all day at a school, when I come back, yes, I've got my business side of things to complete, and I do have a tick list. I need to get this done. But I really like the way that you said, the first 3 are the most important, and that's what your focus is on, completing those 3. And the rest of it is, if you have time for it.
Exactly.
And I think that's something I think I'm going to incorporate in my daily life. I think, and even like you said, expectations for your husband. Yes, I mean, you do expect your husband to do this A, B, and C. But it might not always happen, and you know what? It's okay. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, he's human. He's got
exactly.
Things come up in life. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
So things you haven't accounted for in your to-do list, they'll end up coming up when you least expect them. So it's fine. And I think the problem we've got, Sumayya, as well, is we tend to compare ourselves a lot to others. Because social media and other maybe people in your life, they give across that impression that they are doing it all, or they're managing it all, or they give off this this glamorous, my house is clean, my kids are clean and great and fed, and got a great relationship with my partner. So you kind of aspire to want to be like them, but actually you do tend to quickly realize that not everybody has a perfect life. And don't aspire to these people. Aspire to be the best version of you, what works for you, what works for your family. Everyone's circumstances are 100% different. The people that come across like they have no problems definitely have problems. And I think that's the problem that we've got, and that's another thing when I say to you, we need to try and not rub off our negativity and stuff like that onto our kids. But that's why it's important for our kids to not stress them out about a routine, because I used to be like that with my kids. I used to be like, oh my God, we didn't do this, and oh my God, we didn't do that, and I kind of started to see that they started to get a bit of anxiety when things were not done, or when we didn't go to our tutor lesson, or when we didn't get to this place on time, even something simple like being late somewhere. It's nice to teach them to always be on time, that's fine, but the problem is they'll imitate our behavior, and we start instilling that anxiety in them. So even I get stressed out about being late to certain places, but I just think, okay, I can't go any faster than I'm going, let it go. That person that's waiting for me will understand. It's absolutely fine. And I think that's the thing with lowering your expectations about yourself, because it will life will just be a lot easier. It's okay. You have to just, I honestly tell myself all the time in my head, I'm like, it's okay. It's okay.
I'm glad you're not the only one. I'm glad I'm not the only one. Sorry. It's just like, I also speak to myself as well. It's just like, the other day we had a little party at home for my son's birthday, and at the end of the day there was a pile of dishes, and I felt like, I should really tidy this up. And my husband was like, let me do it. And I was like, no, you know what? We're both so tired that it's okay. It sits the night. It's not a big deal. It's not going anywhere. You know, we'll wake up tomorrow and we'll sort it out. It's not a problem.
Exactly.
You know,
but the thing is, sometimes in life, though, you do get to that point where you've reached a point where you will cry over spilt milk on the table. That's how stressed you are.
Oh, yeah.
But I think you need to realize that when you've reached that point, that's when you need to step back from a lot of things, because that's when you need to be aware of yourself and your emotions and how much you're taking on. When you do reach that point where something like, you know, your child has spilled over some juice and that reaches you to breaking point, that's your sign for yourself to stop, take a break, look at what's important, look at life's perspectives, carry on.
You know what, it's okay, it's just a little bit of juice or milk or whatever, and you know what, it can easily be tidied up. So what if something has broken? It's not a big deal. Like, I think you do definitely have to step back and think, okay, it's okay, like, you know, there are more other priorities than always having a sparkling house. It's not going to happen. I've like that I've got that peace now in my heart that, you know what, this is my house, and you know what, I don't need to live up to anyone's expectations and say, oh, well, they have a sparkling new house or whatever. Like, it is, this is my house, this is the way that we choose to live, and we're okay with it. As long as we're okay with it, and then it's okay, you know. That's just the way life is, I think, you know.
Another important thing is it's important not to be a demanding person. So, you know, don't be demanding on your husband. He won't be demanding back on you. And that leads to, you know, you being able to communicate well with each other, and not setting those expectations. Just, I think, not setting any expectations, just letting those go completely. What do you think?
I think it's definitely important. I mean, if you're both working, and I think in your family as well, you said you and your husband are working. In my family, both me and my husband are working, and I think if you have, on top of all those working hours, and if you put expectations on it, I think you'll feel really, you know, you can start to feel withdrawn as well if you feel like your expectations are not being met.
Exactly.
And I think, I mean, your husband is your closest. One of your closest family members to you. You see them all day. You know, you spend a lot of time with them. You know, and if you have all these expectations that, you know, that, well, for example, we should have long, meaningful conversations together, or we should have date nights, or whatever it is your expectations, and if they're not fulfilled, you feel like, well, you know, I mean, why is he not doing what I want him to do? And maybe vice versa, he's also feeling the same thing.
I think that's one thing us women forget, isn't it, at times, is we're always saying, me. Why has he not listened to me? Why has he not done what I've asked of him? Why, you know, whereas I feel like we find it harder to put ourselves in their shoes and what they might be going through. So that's definitely important, I think, for women to realise is they do have a big burden on their shoulders, you know, to provide that for their family. And we need to appreciate them as much as, you know,
I think as our
them
children
to appreciate us.
I mean, as our children are getting, well, as my children are getting older, like, their wants and needs are changing now, and I feel like, you know, obviously it is expensive to bring up a family in nowadays when everyone's working and you have to have a two household income, you know, and there's so many things and like you said, like, there's so many things going on in their heads, and they may not say it and they may not verbalize it as much as I know I do when I'm stressed out or something. I'm like, oh, why didn't you do this, or why didn't you do that, or, you know. So my husband is the silent type, you know. So there's probably lots going on in his head, and he won't say anything to me. And sometimes I see it on his face, like, you know, he's looking a bit, you know, distracted or something. And I was like, oh, what's the matter? And he'll be like, no, nothing. But he doesn't want to then burden his problems onto me, and because, you know, I've got a lot going on, you know, but I think. And that's the thing, is like with me, when I have something going on in my head, I'll just say it, and then I'll be like, oh, why didn't you do this, or why didn't you do that? And that's the thing, we have all these expectations of our husband, but alternately, you know, we have to, I think, as working moms, we have to realize that obviously they're working dads as well.
Exactly.
So we have to be like, they're not just husbands, they're dads, and then they have so many responsibilities as well. So if we keep all these expectations of our husbands, I think it's unfair on them, and it's unfair on ourselves as well. We won't be able to live a happy married life like that.
It's stressful,
definitely. It's very, very stressful.
And I think I liked your point about mentioning, like, when you come from a household where there's two working parents, make sure that your kids have low expectations of what of life as
Yeah,
well, because yeah, we're working for them, and yeah, we're working to give them a better life. But for me, it's really important to keep my kids grounded, because I don't want them to think, oh, you're both working, I can ask for anything and I'll get whatever I want, or I can go and you know, it's okay, you're both working, you can both provide for me. I don't like that. I like them to still kind of appreciate how hardworking we are and kind of earn the good things that in life that we can give them. That's really important for me.
Yeah, I like that point where you said that, you know, keeping your kids grounded. I often remind my children that, yes, mommy and daddy are working, and yes, alhamdulillah, we are blessed that we can, you know, we have the you know, we can afford the things in life, or whatever it is, like, you know, we're going on holidays, or taking, you know, buying them their luxury, like their bikes and things like that. But I said that things don't just happen like that. You have to work hard in life to achieve these things, and you know, and rely on Allah, and appreciate His blessings, you know, and like I tell my children that, you know, the food that we've been given to eat today, this is a bounty from Allah, that we should appreciate it and not be like, oh no, I don't want to eat this and I don't want to eat that.
No, exactly.
You know, what's
there's
in
children
your plate,
that have no food in the world. I always say that to my kids.
I say that as well, and I say to them that, you know, whatever you take in your plate, you can eat as much as you want, but as long as you finish what's in your plate, I think you have to appreciate it. And I don't know how it is in everyone's household, but I don't let my children leave until they have finished every grain of food on their plate. I feel like if you're taking it, you have to finish it, you know. And I think, like, you know, again, it's the whole thing of, don't build the expectations up so much, like you said, that they feel like they can come and ask you for anything and everything, and then they forget about the simple things in life, you know. You know, just spending time with your family is just as important as it is as getting like the latest game or something, you know. And I think that is something that, you know, is important for them to do.
Definitely. We lower the expectations, and that brings us on to the end of our show. Join us next time for Women at Work. Ma'as salama.